On the field. Off the field. Sports talk. Entertainment and more. This is Sauce on the Side.
Well, hello there, Dippers, and welcome back to episode 56 of the Sauce on the Side podcast. As always, I'm your host, Drake, coming to you live from the kennel.
Woof, woof.
And I'm joined by the producer, Leighton Pip Shavantone.
Right now, Vic Porcello is throwing against the Cleveland Indians. If you hear any random swear words, because Vic Porcello is fucking off.
I will guarantee Leighton will at least say one swear word, directly result of Rick Porcello. And joined by the guest host today, Jared Diesel Darty.
The wait is over. 3 more days until college football.
And we cannot wait. Dippers, for you today, we have our college football preview show. This is my most favorite show of the whole entire year. I mean, this show is going to be phenomenal. It's fun. We're going to break down each of the Power 5 conferences, tell you who's going to be winning each one of those. We're going to break down your Heisman finalists, who will win. We have Diesel's Doghouse is back since Diesel is in the kennel today. And we're going to break down your college football playoff, Final Four teams in, and who your winner will be. We also have a very, very special interview today with the former Maryland and Wisconsin quarterback and current CFL quarterback of the Edmonton Eskimos, Danny O'Brien. Very, very fun interview. Awesome guy, and he's probably a part of the premier name in professional sports in the Eskimos. So guys, I talked about it. It's the college football preview show. Power 5 conferences. We'll break them down individually, and we'll start off with the Big Ten. Diesel, you can take it first. Who will win the Big Ten East?
I'm going to preface mine by saying that I assume Urban Meyer is going to keep his job. With that being said, I'm going with Ohio State. Really, if over the last 6 years they have 3 conference losses, that's insane.
That is crazy.
That's dominance for sure. Their defense, they're bringing back Bosa, and they've got other first-round talent on there. And then the offense might get better. I think Haskins is probably going to be, once he figures maybe, I don't know how long it's going to take him. Maybe it's right off the bat, maybe not. But I think he'll be better than Barrett was. I think he's got more that he can do. And then the reason I picked them over Michigan is when they play Michigan, it's at home. And then Michigan's also got a crossover game against Wisconsin. Well, Ohio State doesn't play them all year. So that's going to make it harder for Michigan.
I also preface mine by saying that I suspect Urban Meyer to be the head coach of Ohio State. That being said, my East champion is Penn State. I know you're thinking there's lost Saquon Barkley, but they brought back basically everybody else, and Trace McSorley is the real deal. But I picked them, though, because they play all their hardest games at home this season. Play Ohio State, Michigan State, Iowa, and Wisconsin all at home. And at home, McSorley has a 17-4 touchdown interception ratio. On the road, it's 9-4, and the exact same number of pass attempts. So at home in big games, he shows up. The only hard game they have on the road really is Michigan, but you're not going to be undefeated to go to the college football playoff or win the Big Ten.
Mine's actually going to be a little different than your guys's, which kind of shows you just how unpredictable this Big Ten and how competitive the Big Ten should be this season. And I'm going to go with Michigan. It was my pick last year, but really the team didn't have a stable quarterback situation. And today they had actually came out and said that they are going to use Shea Patterson as their quarterback, and he's actually I think he's ranked 11th in possible Heisman hopefuls. So that just shows you how good of a quarterback he is. He had 17 touchdowns to 9 interceptions with a 63% completion percentage, and he's going to be there with a better coach with Harbaugh. Harbaugh's a phenomenal coach, especially for quarterbacks. We're going to see Harbaugh's recruits finally go to work. His number 8 recruiting class, and he had a number 5 recruiting class that'll be sophomores now. They're returning Higdon and Evans, who both had well over 5 yards per carry. And there's actually some smart guy out there, I don't know really who he is, came out and said, what is the percent of production from last season are you bringing back to this season? And Michigan actually ranked 13th. I said last year that the only unpredictable thing about them was the quarterback situation and the fact that they were really young. So this defense is actually bringing back 33 sacks from last season, and they're bringing back Tyree Kennel, who had 41 solo tackles, 60 tackles, and 45 tackles for loss. And he plays at the safety position. So this guy's a definite game breaker and could be a huge part of that Michigan defense. And I really like him just because they are young, and Harbaugh's finally getting his guys into place there.
Yeah, middle last year, whenever we on the same show, we talked about how Michigan might not be ready yet because they're all still so young, and now those guys are a year older, a year more experienced, and I think they're a team to look out for too.
Yeah, I think Michigan's going to be a very fun team to watch, but I think the East for the Big Ten is about as unpredictable as any other conference in college football. So, guys, the West kind of been dominated by Wisconsin recently. Diesel, who do you have as your winner for the West?
It's probably not popular opinion, but I'm going to go with Iowa. I think I do realize they're unranked and Wisconsin's in the top 5. I'm going to take them mainly based on their schedule. So whenever they play Wisconsin at home, and they don't play Michigan or Ohio State this year. Wisconsin, on the other hand, plays at Iowa, like I mentioned. They play at Michigan, at Penn State. I mean, they could lose all 3 of those games. And it's going to come down, it's going to be like a one-game thing. It's either going to be a tie or somebody's going to be one game back. So I honestly think Iowa is going to win that and then get mopped in the championship.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll preface this pick by whoever wins this side of the conference is probably going to get mopped in the title game.
Probably, yeah.
Leighton, who do you have winning the West?
I actually am going to go with the chalk pick this time over Wisconsin. Over the past 4 seasons, they had double-digit years, all those 3 seasons under Coach Paul Chryst, and they have bowl wins all these years. So basically, their goal at this point is to just win the Big Ten championship game, which, like we just said, they probably will not do.
Right. Yeah. The Wisconsin is such a weird team because they're so boring. Their games always get put early in the day, so nobody gets a ton of exposure to this team, and they're just really just an old school football team. And I actually love Nebraska this year. They're bringing back their top 3 leading rushers, top 2 pass catchers, and they actually have the number 7 dual threat quarterback from last season coming to play under Frost. Whether or not he's going to be the opening day starter, it at least gives him a guy that I think Frost will be drawn to, especially because this guy initially committed to Tennessee, and then whenever Frost left UCF, he came and he decided to be a part of Nebraska. So that shows that this kid obviously wants to be there with Frost, and Frost is a big reason why he's going there. So I could see them finding a good connection early and actually having a really, really good team. I know that Nebraska hasn't been good for a while, but this program has a lot of pedigree and a lot of success, early on. Quite a few years ago, though. But anytime you see a coach as good as Scott Frost go to a program with a lot of pedigree, it usually pans out pretty well, and I find them having success early, especially with what Diesel talked about with Wisconsin having the tough split games and a lot of games on the road that are big. I really like it because Wisconsin has to get they play Penn State and Michigan, and Nebraska gets a lot of those games at home, and their conference schedule isn't nearly as tough. Guys, Diesel, you have Iowa and Ohio State. Who do you think is going to win the Big Ten?
Ohio State wins Big Ten.
Yeah, Ohio. In that potential matchup, I would see Ohio State drumming anybody who makes it to that spot. Leighton, who do you have?
Penn State over Wisconsin.
Yeah, Penn State over Wisconsin. I think that would be a no-brainer, too. I really think whoever wins the East is going to win this thing. I think that Michigan ends up winning the Big Ten this year. Get Harbaugh a little bit of a taste of what it's like to be standing atop the Big Ten. And the only reason I'm really not going with Ohio State is there's too much going on. I feel like these players are too young, and whenever you throw a wrench into things like this where he's not able to coach early on in training camps and everything, I feel like that's going to be a lot on these young players' shoulders. So I'm going with Michigan.
One thing I am really excited for, though, is that Ohio State Michigan game and like Ohio State Penn State, that stuff that happens in like late October, November, that's going to be crazy.
Oh yeah, those games are going to be phenomenal.
Might be 10 to 11, but they're going to be crazy games.
Oh yeah.
Like, I gotta give you props. I'm amazed that you talk about Nebraska. You said 3 different things before you mentioned Scott Frost being there.
Yeah, well, you know, I
I
love
think
Scott
you're going to
Frost.
say Nebraska because they have Scott Frost, the best coach in the world.
Well, you know, with Scott Frost is the obvious thing, but like you have to you have to kind of bolster up your pick too, because if it would have been Scott Frost and a bunch of new guys at Nebraska, I don't know if I would go with it. But since they're returning a lot of the guys who had success last year, I really like this team. I do, and Scott Frost is one of the greatest football minds in the NCAA, so I'm going to go with him. So, guys, we'll go to the Big 12. So, the Big 12 is a little odd since they don't have opposite sides of the conference. They just kind of lump every game together, and your top two teams at the end of the season are playing in the championship. So, we'll go ahead and we'll start with your runner-up. Diesel, you go first. Who do you have as the runner-up for the Big 12 this season?
So the Big 12 has quite a few ranked teams still, but I think the conference takes a step back. It's never had anyone playing defense really, and then there are so many new quarterbacks. I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't think they're going to be that great at football teams. TCU is number 2 for me though. I feel like they're always overlooked and they always overperform. They'll probably have the best defense in the conference, and then with all those new quarterbacks, I think that's going to be a pretty big advantage. And then since 2014, they've had 12 wins, 11 wins, 6 wins, 11 wins. That's 3 really good years. They got first, second, and second.
Yeah, and Gary Patterson's a phenomenal coach. I love him. I think he's like the longest-standing Power 5 coach, is he not?
I'm not sure.
Bill Snapp, I was going to say about that.
Yeah,
Bill
well, I think he took like those 1 or 2 years off. That was just like really weird, and then he came back at like 97 years old, and he's been coaching since then.
Yeah. So now he's what, 104, 105?
Yeah, 104, I think.
He's getting up there.
He's getting up there in age. Leighton, who's your runner-up for the Big 12?
I'm going to actually Texas. It might be a stretch. They went 6-6 last season. But I have a lot of faith in Tom Herman and him being there, for another whole year with more guys and our Ellinger's quarterback, having him for a whole offseason. It'd be big. I think Texas, a team that can maybe win 9 or 10 games this season.
Yeah, my runner-up is actually going to be West Virginia. Rudolph gone, Mayfield's gone, Kenny Hill's gone. Those are the top 3 quarterbacks last year in the conference, and they went 1, 2, 3. So you look at this conference, every single year, the best quarterback in this conference typically wins, and the second best quarterback gets second, and the third best quarterback gets third, because it's a quarterback driven conference, and defense is basically optional in this. And I have Will Grier as Will Grier's the best quarterback in this conference this season, and I think that this team can actually find success this season because it is going to be such a quarterback-driven conference. And you look at years past, 1 and 2 the year prior to last year was Baker and Rudolph. And then you had Baker, Rudolph, and Boykin, 1, 2, 3. The year before that, it was Bryce Petty and Boykin, so 1 and 2. And then Bryce Petty and Trevor Knight, 1 and 2. So it's obviously a quarterback-driven league. I really like this team. Will Grier gets back both of his top pass catchers in David Stills, which David Stills is an awesome story if you don't know anything about him. So you remember whenever Lane Kiffin was back at USC, and he was just this weirdo, basically, and he went out and he signed like a 12-year-old kid to be his quarterback in the next, whenever the kid graduated high school. Well, that's actually David Stills now. And he caught 18 touchdowns for West Virginia last year because he eventually transferred. But I really like West Virginia's team. Since it's a quarterback-driven league, I'm going to go with Will Grier. Diesel, who do you actually have winning the Big 12 this season?
Piggybacking on what you said, those are good points. I was really tempted to put West Virginia there. And I've followed Will Grier since he was got on campus at Florida, just because that's who I tend to follow. And the reason I didn't choose them is their November schedule is at Texas versus TCU, at Oklahoma State, and then Oklahoma.
They get put through the grinder.
And in November, I don't know. I'm not sure how much depth they have, and I feel like that's when it's going to be the most important. But anyways, I've got Oklahoma winning it. I know they lose Baker Mayfield, but the guy they're replacing him with was the number 9 overall pick in the MLB draft this year.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal athlete.
He's got to be. I mean, maybe he busts, but what guy would you rather have in there? I mean, that's about as good as you can replace him with. And then I think they just have more depth than everybody else. Oklahoma's always good, so I'm going with Oklahoma first.
Yeah, my winner of the Big 12 actually West Virginia, and I think you said, Drake, it's a quarterback-driven league, and they definitely had the best quarterback. The defense, is still awful, but per Big 12 standards, it's probably one of the better ones. The biggest question is, though, that November schedule. They go through the gauntlet and all those teams. How will they come out at the end? And I think to be able to pull together, if West Virginia can't do it this year, they're never going to be able to do it. This is the last chance. Like, this is the best chance they're going to have.
Yeah, I agree with you with West Virginia having a very good chance this year to win the conference. But I'm actually going to go with your runner-up, Texas. They play Oklahoma, West Virginia, TCU, and USC. All teams that are preseason ranked on their schedule are all home games for this team. I know USC won't factor into the conference standings, but it still just proves how good of a schedule that they have bolstered for this season. Number 24 defense in the country last year, and 8 of their opponents from last season, which they played 12 games, all averaged over 30 points per game. Herman's defense actually only allowed over 30 points one time in conference games, which is phenomenal. Less than 20 points given up in conference games, which is only second to I think Iowa State, which, Iowa State, they just slowed the whole entire game down, so that's why theirs were so low. And he came out and made Ellinger the starting quarterback today, so I feel like he has a connection there with Ellinger, and there's not going to be the quarterback controversy and all the question marks going into the season like there was last year where they took quite a few knocks early. He took Houston from a 9-3 team to a 13-1 team. Texas was 7-6 last year. I could see this easily being a 10-win football team, and I actually like Texas to win the Big 12 there.
So I think Oklahoma is going to be leading the conference at the end of the regular season. I think TCU is going to beat them in the championship, and no team from the Big 12 is going to the playoff.
Yeah, I don't have a Big 12 team in my
I don't
playoff
have one either.
I feel like this is going to be it's not going to have a ton of top-loaded teams. I feel like a lot of teams are just going to be kind of just in the mix there.
Okay, I think they're now a top-ranked team, Oklahoma, and they're ranked 6 or something, and they to guarantee that the top 10. Like Jared said, there were a lot of ranked teams, but I think as a whole, the quality is taking a step back this season.
Yeah, I do too, especially losing all those quarterbacks from last season. So we'll go on to the Pac-12. We'll start off with the North. Diesel, who do you have winning the Pac-12 North?
Washington just wasn't much to look at, I didn't feel like.
No, they're absolutely loaded again.
I feel like they are a legitimate team, or like in past years they've been legitimate on both sides of the ball. They're just a really, really good football team, but they're the only elite football team I can even see in the conference, it seems like.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Like chance at making it to the playoff, kind of good.
Yeah, I kind of a preview to later, I do have them in my playoff. I really like Washington this season. Leighton, who do you have winning the North?
This is a total pick of how much I love their stud, but I have Stanford winning the North. Bryce Love came back and showed basically the entire offensive line is one of the best in the country. The quarterback, KG Costello, won't put up many numbers, but he's not going to turn the ball over, and he'll be solid enough to not lose them games. I think that when they play Washington specifically, if they can slow the game down enough, and it's basically beat the Cowboys in the NFL, and it's not get a team the ball, they can beat Washington, and they beat basically anybody in the country.
Yeah, I like Stanford, but I don't think I like them as much as Washington. I think Washington is the biggest lock to win their side of the conference coming into this season. They have the best returning coach in Chris Peterson. They have the best quarterback in Jake Browning, and you put them together to start for their 4th straight season. I think this is Browning's 4th season and Peterson's 3rd season. It's a deadly combination. I mean, Washington went 22-5 in their last 2 seasons, and Browning had a little bit of a down year last year, 700 less passing yards and 24 less touchdowns, but a lot of their wide receivers were hurt last season, and they're returning almost everybody except for Pettis from last season. I really like this team, especially they have Myles Gaskin, 1,600-yard scrimmage guy, 24 touchdowns last year, and their top 2 sack guys are back. And this was a defense that was, I believe, 5th in the NCAA last season in points allowed. So you put a high-powered offense with a great defense, that's a scary combination, especially in a conference that's really not that great. So we talked about the North. Diesel, who do you have winning the South?
I have USC. I think they're going to have more talent than the other rosters in this side of the conference. The other teams are Utah, Colorado, Arizona, UCLA, Arizona State. I don't see anybody beating. Like, USC has had a winning culture for the past couple of years. Generally, that doesn't just evaporate. I mean, some of the teams coming back, they're going to try to keep that same thing going. They've got a highly touted freshman coming in at quarterback, and then they've got like a defensive player of the year for the conference candidate at linebacker. I just think USC is going to win that side.
Yeah, and USC will be a tough team, but when I look at the Pac-12 South, I don't think we're like world beaters out there. So I've been with Arizona State. Main reason is Herm Edwards is now the coach. Remember John Harbaugh went to Michigan.
Dude, this conference is loaded with awesome coaches coming in
Yeah, I
this
know.
season.
But listen to me though. Whenever Jim Harbaugh went to Michigan wasn't that good of a team, and he went in there and with his attitude, anything, just they changed the way Michigan does everything, and they had a swagger about it. That next year they won double-digit games. Will Arizona State be good Michigan? I don't know, but whoever's going to go in there and going to change the way everything's done, he's going to be new leadership, bring a swagger to the team. I think see his team win 10 games, winning the AFC or Pac-12 South.
I see Herm Edwards walking into the running back room and just finding the biggest guy and say, you're going to get 400 touches this season, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Like, they better have ice baths ready for this kid, like, at halftime. Because, I mean, dude, you remember whenever he had Larry Johnson back at
Oh, yeah, he ended his career.
Yeah, he ended Larry Johnson's career. I mean, they're college kids, so, I mean, hopefully they'll be able to withstand that. But, man, Herm Edwards is going to put the load on
I
him.
mean, think about it, though. The college kids have fewer carries on than Larry Johnson did at the time, too.
Yeah, that's true.
So, really, college football is made for him. And plus, you have, like, 20 kids that are just to go to the next one.
Yeah.
He
You
needs
usually
a
have
lot.
like 6 running backs. So.
Yeah.
He needs a lot of crazy kids that don't want to go to the NFL. That's what he needs.
Yeah, if he gets that, he's going to be set. I actually kind of like that as a sneaky pick. So, hit on USC a little bit. They were 11-3 last year. 4 wins were decided by less than a touchdown. I feel like this team doesn't get any better by losing, Ronald Jones and Sam Darnold. And Sam Darnold was kind of the comeback kid that any game that was close, he was going to find a way to win it. And I don't see that same success repeating. My team that I'm going with is Arizona. You got Kevin Sumlin coming in as another one of those great coaches that are heading to the Pac-12. And he has himself a quarterback in Khalil Tate. When Sumlin has a quarterback, he's extremely dangerous. You look at the couple of years he had Manziel there in the SEC, and Manziel was still able to put up numbers in the SEC. So I think Tate's going to be the same exact way since they're going to be playing in the Pac-12, which doesn't have as good as defense. And this is an offense last year that was number 8 in the country. They averaged 39.6 points per game last season, and Tate wasn't even the biggest factor in the offense through the first few weeks. Tate, 1,500-yard passing guy, 1,400-yard rushing guy. So it's an extremely versatile quarterback, very similar to Johnny Manziel. I don't think that he passes the ball quite as well as Manziel does, but if he's still able to be that mobile, still able to throw the ball, I see this offense being way too much for a lot of teams in the Pac-12, and I have Arizona actually winning the Pac-12 South. So, Diesel, you have USC and Washington. Who do you see as the winner of the Pac-12?
Washington. I got Washington.
And Leighton?
Stanford.
You have Stanford?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going with Washington. I think Washington's going to run through the Pac-12. And in fact, I think Washington's probably going to have an undefeated season.
They'll probably disappoint.
I hope not, because I think Peterson's one of the best coaches in the
I have a feeling they're going to drop a couple that they shouldn't.
That's how I feel, too. Yeah.
I think they open up the season actually against Auburn. So that'll be a huge telltale sign for how good Washington's going to be. And I think if they lose a game, it'll be that. I don't see them losing a conference game this year. So we'll go ahead and transition to the ACC. Been a very good conference, kind of unpredictable with the exception of Clemson over the past couple seasons. But Diesel, who do you have winning the ACC Atlantic?
I think Dabo has kind of created his version of Bama. He's got a little bit of a dynasty going, I think.
But it's a lot more fun to watch.
But their defense, even back last year and looking forward to this year, it's gonna be unbelievable. I think they've got they've got like three defensive linemen that could be defensive player of the year. That's just in their conference. I just don't think anybody's gonna be able to beat them. And then they've got their quarterback coming back. He doesn't even have to be that great.
No,
I think he's going to be a pretty good player. He doesn't even have to be that great though with that defense. So I think they're going to win that one.
Yeah, it means Clemson. They have depth anyway, even at quarterback. I can't remember the freshman's name right now.
Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence, yeah, he might compete for the starting job and take over at the end of the season. Apparently, he's just amazing. But like Jay said, there's a reason Christian Wilkins and Klein Phil came back. Like, they won a championship, and they just had good chances in it. I think this is...
Yeah, I think Clemson's one of those teams that are geared to win a title this year. Obviously, Dabo keeps getting top 5 recruiting classes, building a team like Bama, building it up front in the front 7, and I think his best quarterback is actually his backup. Number 1 quarterback from this last recruiting class. and I think he's going to be better than Kelly. And I was looking at some of the Vegas odds makers, and they actually have Trevor Lawrence as a top 15 guy to win the Heisman this season. And he's starting the season at the number 2 quarterback position.
Just bring him at halftime of the championship.
Yeah, that's one of the kind of things that I'm looking at. Dabo, he's one of those guys who's quick to adapt and quick to, kind of, if he sees success somewhere else, he's going to bring it in his own. And if he sees Kelly Bryant struggling a little bit, he might give Trevor Lawrence a chance, because apparently Trevor Lawrence has been like a man on fire since he's got on campus, and he's looking really good, and apparently he can stretch the ball a lot better than what Kelly Bryant can, and if that offense can stretch the ball down the field, they're probably going to be your favorite to win the championship. So we'll head to the Coastal side of things. Miami picked up the Coastal Division championship last year. Diesel, do you see them repeating?
So it was really tough. I picked Virginia Tech initially. That's who I wanted to real bad. But then I dug deeper, and from their linebacking core and their cornerbacks, they have 0 career starts. So I thought, that's a little bit of a risk. I don't know if they can pull that off.
Right.
So I think Miami's going to repeat. I think they have a chance to be better this year than they were last year.
Yeah, I have Miami too. We saw a team take a step forward last season, and they brought back much of the offense and defense. So I think this team could be even better. And in fact, I had them within one victory of the college football playoff.
Yeah, I actually had them within one victory, too, of the college football playoff. And if they're able to beat Clemson in that title game, I see them as a lock. Last season, this team started off hot, 10-0, and then they lost their last 3 straight games. So I think that last season, the way that it ended, was a bad taste in the mouth for those players, and it's going to make them more hungry. I mean, they're returning 7 offensive starters and 8 defensive starters, and that defense last year was nasty, running around with the turnover chain. They just looked phenomenal, and all they did was add a top 8 recruiting class. So you look at this defense, returning 8 guys, only gave up 30 touchdowns last season. I really, really like this team, and they're really going to go as far as Rozier will take them. And he was mediocre last season, so you expect him to take a jump forward. And they were 10-3 last season with him playing questionable football. So I see this team being very, very dangerous this year. So Diesel, you have Clemson versus Miami. Who do you see taking it home?
Also with Miami, Football Power Index, they're favored in every single game on their schedule. Miami is.
Are they really?
Yep.
Wow, that's pretty wild, actually.
That is.
But I have Clemson winning the conference, going to the playoff.
I have Clemson too.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty
You guys
easy
didn't
one.
give Miami a chance?
I do. If Rozier takes a step forward, because they're bringing back Travis Homer, who is a big-time running back. Like, he's a stud, probably going to be, a very good running back in the NFL. A little banged up last season. And, with the long season, I attribute the 3 straight losses at the end of the season to him kind of dwindling down as the season went on. Mm-hmm. Another year, him being smarter on how to, manage his body. So I think you can't count him out, especially Mark Richt. He's a great coach. You can't count him out, but I just don't see them beating Clemson.
Yeah, I'm not counting him out, but if no one gets hurt this season for either team, I don't see it as a way Clemson loses.
Who do you think it benefits more? Let's say everything goes how we plan. They both go to the championship. Who do you think it benefits more that they don't play in the regular season? That they don't get a second look?
I think it benefits Mark Richt more.
Yeah, I think it benefits Miami more for sure.
Yeah, because you look at
Clemson's a better team,
but you can only. I feel like athleticism would win the second time. Having better players would win the second time. Like, if it might favor Clemson more. If they're going to drop one, they could lose the one in the regular season and then beat them the second time.
Yeah, but Dabo, if he gets a second look at you and, teams are basically the same, he's going to beat you. You look what he did the second time that he faced Alabama.
the same thing he did the first time he faced Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty... I don't know. I think he's a better coach, and usually the better coach will win those.
That's what I'm saying, though. Like, even on Clemson's side of things, if they're going to get beat, they're going to get beat the first time because somebody can surprise them. If they get a second shot, so it might be better for Clemson to play them twice. Yeah,
that is true. I don't know. I think it benefits Miami, though, not having to play them in the regular season, because if they played, which it showed last year, that it doesn't really matter what you do in the regular season as long as you end up head-to-head, as long as you pick up that win in the conference title game with Georgia last year. Even though they lost to Auburn earlier in the season, they beat them. What have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
And the whole what have you done for me lately would benefit Clemson, I think, in a rematch, even if they did lose to Miami. Because it seems like Clemson plays way too many close regular season games for my liking.
They messed around too much. I feel like what game against Auburn last year?
Yeah, well, it was Syracuse last year.
Yeah,
they dropped a game to Syracuse, and then the year prior, I think they dropped a game to Pitt. It's just kind of weird games that they lose,
Yeah.
and I think that if they played in the regular season, Miami might be able to sneak up on them. I mean, you look at Miami last year in the regular season; they were trouncing teams, especially like the game against Notre Dame. They came out there and beat them 41-3.
Yeah, and over the past several years, we've just seen it'd be hard for a college team to beat a team twice.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. We're just talking about it from different sides.
right. Yeah.
Same point, yeah.
So we'll go to the SEC. Diesel, this is your conference, probably of expertise. So we'll have you go first on this. We'll start in the West. Who do you like winning the SEC West?
So I think Tua starts the whole year, and it's going to be the same. I think Alabama's going to win. I think either Clemson or Alabama, one of those teams is going to go undefeated. I'm not sure which one. It's hard to say. I think Alabama might. I almost want to say Clemson could go undefeated. They're more likely to go undefeated because Tua started he's played maybe the equivalent of 3 games or something.
Right.
So I could see him just making a mistake and having him lose. But that's who I've got in the West. I've got Alabama.
Yeah, Alabama too. I think TT starts all year, and the offense is loaded for the first time in a long time. Might be better than the defense, and the defense is going to be killer. So, Bama.
Yeah, I don't think I have Alabama winning this, and it's a few separate reasons why. Last year I picked Alabama to basically run the house, basically dominate everybody all season, win their conference, and head to the title game. I think this is going to be some new waters for Nick Saban. So the offensive coordinator that they brought in, Mike Locksley, he's 3-31 as a career head coach. So that makes me question a little bit his offensive play calls because, if he's an offensive-minded guy, obviously he's going to be making those calls even at the head coach position. So, and Nick Saban has a dynamic quarterback. I don't know if he's going to... There's going to be a learning curve with that, obviously. Better quarterback play is going to be up in the air because we've always seen from Nick Saban teams in the past, it's either been this bulldozing running quarterback who keeps the ball short, doesn't really extend the field that much, and it limits your opportunity for error. I don't know how this team's going to respond if Tua's out there just slinging the ball around the yard like we saw him do in the second half of the title game last year, and he makes a couple bad plays. Because I know Hurts, I had said before that I did not see Alabama winning a title with Hurts, and it was kind of because he didn't do enough. He kind of just kept everything...
He was terrible.
Yes, he kept everything way too shallow, but...
He got more timid in the biggest moment.
Yes.
It seemed like
and I feel like Tua might drop a game. And the team that I have them dropping a game to is a team that I do not think is going to go undefeated. I think they're going to lose the opening game of the season, and that's LSU. I think Ed Orgeron's going to come out after that Miami loss and just be a man on fire, and I see him beating Nick Saban one time, and this is his year, one time in his career at LSU. Now, I think this is going to be a team that's probably going to lose 2 games. They're going to drop a conference game, and they're going to drop the opener against Miami. But if you look at these quarterbacks that LSU has, they're pretty good. I mean, they have Miles Brennan, who hopefully is the starter, in my opinion. He's a sophomore now, and last year at the end of the Alabama game, he got in. It was a 24-10 game. He got in those weird times where the game wasn't over, but they were like, hey, we need some offense quick. Why is that guy not playing all the time? If you need offense quick, why is he not your starter all season? The guy came in against Alabama, boom, rattled off 2 first downs, which is pretty impressive for your first time ever seeing Alabama. And then in the Troy game, they were down 17-0. They throw him in the third quarter. He drives down the field. They fumble within the red zone. They get the ball back. They end up scoring, and they end up putting up some points. I know it's against Troy, but he looks really, really good. And I think he's going to be that kind of guy that takes LSU to the next step. And LSU brought in a new offensive coordinator who said that they're going to be running a lot of 5-wide spreads. So I think this is going to be an interesting team, something that the SEC doesn't get to see a lot of, and you know that the running back talent's going to be there. Ed Orgeron's been bringing in top 5 recruiting classes over the past few years. So I like LSU to win this.
How many monsters will Orgeron shotgun before that Bama game?
Oh, dude, Ed Orgeron is going to have to get a case of Monster before that game. And last year, if you look at the game, it was a really, really close game. There was some questionable calls down the stretch that I thought really propelled Alabama to win that game. It was only a 24-10 game, which is pretty high scoring for those two teams. But I think this will be Ed Orgeron's year. They're kind of flying under the radar, and I like that out of an Ed Orgeron team. So we have the West set. Diesel, who do you have winning the East?
So it's kind of a homer pick, but I've got pretty good things to back it up. So when you think about the SEC in general, or probably the SEC specifically, but good college football teams, a lot of them have really good running backs. More than one of them, maybe hell of a lot of them have 3.
Yeah, look at Georgia last year.
Georgia, Bama's done it. The team that had McFadden, all those people did it. Or was that Arkansas?
Yeah, Arkansas.
A lot of teams do that. And then they have a good, fast defense, an athletic defense. That's generally what it is. So Dan Mullen's coming in. That's awesome. I'm tickled to death about it, honestly. But I think he's going to build an offense through the 4 running backs they have. They've got high-star recruits on the line, got a bunch of good running backs. Jordan Scarlett's coming back. Malik Davis is coming back. LaMichael Pirine, and they got one other guy that's an incoming freshman. I think they'll be really good. They don't play Bama. They don't play Auburn. They have South Carolina and LSU at home. And then going to defense, they've had a top 13 defense, or they did, from 2008 to 2016. That's a pretty good run. Obviously, last year that's the year that they ended it. But the new defensive coordinator coming in from Mississippi State, in his first year at Mississippi State, he took a 73rd ranked defense to a 19th in his first year.
That's impressive.
So there are a lot of things swinging in their favor. And it's not, they've beaten Georgia in the past. Recently. And then it's like since the SEC's inception, Florida's won 46% of them. So it's not out of bounds to say they're going to win it, I don't think.
No, and I agree with you. I actually love the Dan Mullen's hire. I think that's up there with like Chip Kelly to UCLA. I think it's one of the premier hires in college football, especially whenever you look at the success that he had there. He was basically the man who made Tebow. I like that a lot, especially if you look at Dak Prescott. And for a team like Florida, with the exception of like the 7 games that they got with Greer, have had terrible quarterback play. I think Dan Mullen's going to be coming in fast, turning things around, and doing a good job. He produces quarterbacks. That's what he does.
Yep, and I do think that will turn things around. I do think it would take more than one season to do it, though, because this year I still have Georgia winning the East. It's going to really question Kirby Smart's ability as a coach, though, because he lost Sonny Michel, Nick Chubb, Connor Smith, and Linton Carter. So there's no more 3rd and 13 hit to draw Michelle who's going for 20 yards.
Right.
That's gone. But he's a very smart coach. Fromm's an excellent quarterback, and if Fromm can't get it done, they can just put in Justin Fields, who was the top dual-threat quarterback in last year's class.
Right. I actually have Georgia too, but I'm not that confident with it.
No.
I think they will lose. I think they'll lose a game in conference, whether it be to a young and up and coming team like Florida or just any other team, because it's the SEC grind. There's a lot of good teams there. But Georgia, like Leighton said, they lost 31 rushing touchdowns and 2,500 rushing yards from last year, and there's no real way to hide Fromm anymore. Last year, Fromm gets in trouble. He can throw the ball up to Javon Wims. He can't do that anymore. Wims went to the NFL draft, and Fromm's probably going to get exposed a little bit. And like you said, Fields is the next man up. I see this being a team that could have a potential quarterback change, but I still have Georgia winning the East, just because I'm really not that confident in anyone else, even though I'm really not that confident in Georgia. So your title game is set, Diesel. Who do you have winning the SEC?
It's going to be the same horrible thing I've watched the last 2 times Florida's won the title game, but they're going to build a team on running this year. They're going to go against Alabama, where that's not the method to win. That you're just not going to be able to run it down their throat. And then I don't think the quarterback play develops fast enough to be a contender this year, but I think maybe in the next year or two, the quarterbacking will finally come around because of Mullen, and then they can do something. But Bama.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Alabama too over Georgia, but I'm just going to say this now. If Fromm is the quarterback in that game, I don't think it's going to be that close, because he doesn't have to keep it anymore. Justin Fields is there, can run around, make plays happen. I think it'll be a closer game, but either way, Alabama.
Yeah, I actually have Georgia winning the SEC this season. It won't be pretty, but I think Georgia's going to be able to find a way. I think Kirby Smart's a good coach. I think Orgeron's a good coach too, but I just see him having the upper leg there. Even though he lost a ton of talent from last season, I have Georgia winning the SEC. So we'll stick on the SEC for just a minute, just because it is such a deep and prestigious conference. I do like Florida in the next couple of years, because if you look at Dan Mullen, whenever he was having success at Mississippi State, you think about that same coaching strategy, but every single player on your team is going to be a step better than what you had at Mississippi State, just due to the recruiting aspect and the ability to get people to come to Florida instead of Mississippi State.
For sure. I love hearing him in interviews too. He's like, I don't know how good we're going to be this year, but we're going to work harder than everybody else. And like, I saw some of the weight transformations of people from the beginning of summer workouts and the end, and apparently it was like balls to the wall. Like, people were either getting much, much bigger or getting much smaller. And it's glad. I think McElwain missed that.
Yeah.
I don't think he took control of the program enough. And I think Mullen I think he's been there. I think he can do it. He's done it in different places too.
Yeah, and I'm excited for the come up of Florida. So then there are some more powerhouses over there in the East, because I really think that's what the SEC needs right now.
Yeah, really, really badly. So Drake, you think LSU is going to beat Alabama?
I do think LSU is going to beat Alabama. I think this is going to be Ed Orgeron's shot in the spotlight.
Do you think Ed Orgeron is going to beat them? Will he beat the Mexicans in his garage?
I don't know if he's going to do that, because like we've had guests tell us in the past that he liked fighting people in his garage.
Yep.
Do you think it's going to be an old 6-3 win, or do you think they'll score a little bit more?
I think this LSU team will actually score a little bit more.
Oh, well, that's been any thoughts. Got more thoughts for us?
Yeah, actually I do.
It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine.
So there are 3 guarantees in life: death, taxes, and Big Al hitting dingers. Jose Urena hit Ronald Acuna on the first pitch because he was too hot. Well, Urena, you're lucky that in your 2-hit, 1-run game yesterday, Bryce Harper didn't chase you around with a baseball bat just because the pitcher got hot. NFL training camp is in full force, and my favorite part of every year is the Rumbles. First rule about joint practices: you don't talk about joint practices. I think Tyler Durden said that on his first day of camp. Terrell Pryor, 2 for flinching. Tyrod Taylor, I've called you a top 10 fantasy option, but I'll never call you Tyrod. New York Jets, if you have 3 starting quarterbacks, you still don't have 1. James Washington, better than Antonio Brown. Hugh Jackson, officially not the greatest preseason coach of all time. Patrick Mahomes, only NFL quarterback with a stronger arm than Uncle Rico. A.J. McCarron down, insert Nathan, pick 6 Peterman. And there's a new book out this week. It's titled How to Lose a 12-Run Lead in 60 Days. And it was written by A.J. Hinch. And those have been my thoughts. So guys, since it's the preview show for the college football season, we will bring you an interview with a man who had great success in the college football ranks. Today we have the former Maryland and Wisconsin quarterback and current CFL quarterback of the Edmonton Eskimos, Danny O'Brien. I hope you guys enjoy this interview. Okay, Dippers, today we have a very, very special interview. He is a Grey Cup champion, ACC Rookie of the Year, Big Ten champion, and now Edmonton Eskimo backup quarterback, Danny O'Brien. Welcome to the kennel.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Okay, so something we always ask guys who played at the top level of college football. You've played in the Big Ten at Wisconsin. You played in the ACC for Maryland. What is the best place to play in D1 football?
Ooh, the best. Now that's going to be a tough one to say definitively. Thinking back, I'd say it would definitely come down to Clemson or Nebraska. Can I give you a per conference?
Yeah, we'll take that.
We'll take that. I'd say the coolest place to play for my time in the ACC at Maryland was definitely Clemson in Death Valley. It was a noon game. It wasn't even a primetime game the week we played them. I just remember being in the huddle and barely being able to get off the play call. It was that loud, and those fans were that crazy. And very similar, my time in the Big Ten, going down a 2-minute drill against Nebraska. Both both times were probably the only two times. There's been a lot of loud places, West Virginia, Florida State come to mind, but those two, I would say, were for sure the two where it was difficult getting in and out of the huddle, let alone, calling stuff like the line of scrimmage. So those two were, just on loudness alone, pretty awesome environments to play a football game.
Yeah, I guess the nickname Death Valley, I guess, holds some weight because a lot of the guys that we've had on this podcast in the past were guys who played in the SEC, and one of their immediate answers was Death Valley, but down in Louisiana. So I guess that nickname, if you're going to have it, it's going to hold some weight.
Yeah, and you got to be able to back it up, and those two are definitely two schools that bring that behind the name of that for sure.
Right. So after your time at Wisconsin and Maryland, you actually transferred to a Division II school, Catawba College. What was your experience like there after playing at such high-level programs for D1 football?
Well, I'll tell you what, I actually tell this to people all the time. Having played kind of at the highest level of college football and then into my career at Catawba College in North Carolina, it really showed me how much I actually just love the game of football because you kind of strip away a lot of the fanfare and the build-up and the ESPN coverage, but the game and the passion and the locker room and the teammates that I had there really hit home with me during the course of that season. How great this game is and how much I actually love the game of football just on its own. Obviously, it's a lot different environment, but still keeping in contact with a lot of those coaches and teammates meant just as much as playing anywhere. So it was full circle for me, but it was definitely, I would say, looking back on that, a great experience.
Right. So during your time at Maryland, you were on the same team as James Franklin as the offensive coordinator. Am I correct?
Oh, yes, sir. James Franklin actually recruited me out of high school. One of the big reasons I went there.
That's a great reason as any. Now, your time there, the offense was absolutely phenomenal at Maryland. And, you said he was a big reason why you went there. Could you tell early on in James Franklin's career that he was going to be this phenomenal coach that he is today?
Oh, absolutely. And I think anyone that played at Maryland at that time would tell you the same thing. I mean, his energy and passion for college football is contagious, and a lot of the guys in my recruiting class, that was a big factor in the reason that they came to Maryland. And then obviously, like you said, we had a lot of success on offense, which always helps getting kids to buy into what you're doing, to have early success, especially with him being the offensive coordinator on that side of the ball. But, I mean, it was obvious. He was the head coach in waiting at the time when we went there. And it's no surprise to anyone. The stuff that he's doing now at Penn State and the way he's got that program going is unbelievable, but not surprising at all.
Right. So people always have those kind of funny stories at the, during their recruiting process, their senior year of coaches coming in. You said that James Franklin was one of the guys who really spearheaded the campaign to get you to Maryland. Was there any funny story about him coming in, or was it just his presence that really made you come to Maryland?
It was his presence and his vision and everything that he thought that I could do there. I really bought into that. But there is a funny story. I remember we, on my official visit weekend up to Maryland, we had a bunch of commits up, maybe 8 or 10 of us. And this is back when they had the ESPN zones. I don't know if you remember those, but the ESPN zones at random cities. There was one in Washington, D.C. I remember there was a football throwing game where balls would come to you on a conveyor belt and you had to hit random targets. And it just kind of speaks to how competitive Frank is. But I went first. I remember I was going against him. I got my score. Coach Franklin goes second. And he was a college quarterback back in his day. And I remember he was down, losing to me, and he actually crawled into the video game to get the balls faster in front of everybody, all dressed up, just getting his knees all dirty. And it was hilarious, but it spoke to me about how competitive he actually is. A lot of people talk about it, and he actually is one of those guys that is that competitive. But to see the guy that recruited me inside of a video game pulling out footballs was pretty wild to see.
That's actually really awesome. And, with as competitive and fiery he is on the sidelines, I really don't know if I'm surprised by that story one bit.
It was one for the ages, for sure. You got people looking from all over, like, what is this guy doing? But, that's him.
That's awesome. So let's transition to the CFL, the Canadian Football League. Probably the second most popular and probably the longest going league there is for football. The CFL. You've played for the Ottawa Red Blacks. You won a Grey Cup there. Now you're playing for my favorite team name with the Eskimos. What is the biggest difference between United States football and football north of the border?
A couple big differences. The first couple obvious ones, if you were to turn on a game for the first time, would be there's only 3 downs up here versus 4 back home, and it's 12 on 12, which changes some things schematically. And then I guess the third biggest difference would be you still have to have 7 guys on the line of scrimmage on offense, but everyone else can actually motion towards the line of scrimmage. If you're bored, actually, we play Saturday, 9 Eastern on ESPN2 if you wanted to check it out if you haven't already, or anyone that was listening. But those are the 3 biggest differences, I would say. And then just the amount of plays, different kinds of plays you can run with that kind of emotion is pretty exciting. There's a bunch of smaller rule changes. The end zones are 20 yards deep versus 10, and the field actually 110 yards long, so it's a little bit bigger field. But those are the biggest differences. If you were just to turn on a game and watch it, that would stand out to you right away, for sure.
Right. I actually watched a CFL game the other day, and it seems to be more excitement, and there's more going on during a game. And I feel like the CFL is kind of what the NFL is trying to become, where they just add more excitement to every single play. And there's really no downtime in the CFL, and it makes it very exciting to watch.
It is. I know I'm going to come across biased because I've been up here for 5 years, but you can tell that the rules are made to keep things exciting. Like, I know I mentioned there was a lot of other small rule differences, like there's no fair catches. You have to give the returner a 5-yard halo to return the ball. And the reason they do that is people want to see action on every play. So if you're punting the ball, there's going to be a return. It's actually a penalty to punt it out of bounds outside of the 20-yard line. So they try to keep the ball in play. And the 3 downs, obviously, you're going to be throwing the ball a lot more just because you have one fewer down to move the chains. So in my time being up here, it's funny because, like I said, I know I'm going to come across biased, but I actually prefer that set of rules now to NFL and college football back home. I still always will watch that just because I love the game. And that's the game I grew up playing, but it's just, you can't blink in the CFL. The leads can change so much quicker just with the rules and being a 20-second play clock versus a 40-second play clock, and it's just a lot more fast-paced. But for someone that hasn't watched it, that turned it on, I think they get a lot out of it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the 2 downs for a first down is definitely a quarterback's dream. So one of the things that you really notice when you turn on the game is that the field goal post is actually in fair play. So being a quarterback, have you ever accidentally led a receiver into the field goal post?
I have not personally led a receiver into one. When I was in Ottawa 2 years ago, I actually threw a post route down the middle against Winnipeg, and it would have hit him perfectly in stride. I have the video somewhere that I could send to you. But one of the better throws of the year, I remember looking at it, that's a touchdown. The ball actually hit the crossbar, which is essentially an incomplete. So that was kind of a bummer. But I have not let anyone into a goalpost so far, luckily.
Right. Well, I mean, if the coach tells you to, throw for a post route, you're going to hit the post. I mean, that's execution at its finest.
I guess I never thought about that, but I guess I did do my job on that play. I threw the post.
Right. So you hinted at it that you guys actually have a game tomorrow. Your game is actually against the Alouettes tomorrow, and I guess Johnny Manziel, he was the quarterback the previous 2 games, and I guess what I just seen is that he's in the concussion protocol now for the CFL.
Yes, sir, he is. That's what it's looking like.
Have you noticed an increase of media hype from the American football fans up in Canada since he was signed to the CFL?
For sure. And I think that's to be expected. I mean, the media's job is to get eyes on whatever the content they're producing, and certainly a name like Johnny Manziel has been great for the league. He's kind of, from a media standpoint, taken over a lot of the headlines here since he's been up here. And I've noticed back home, just on certain updates or bottom lines or whatever, just the tabs that ESPN and the other media companies back home are taking an interest in, his career. And, I think there's a lot of good that comes out of that, just in terms of the awareness of our game and people tuning in to watch him play. And then you might notice, oh, wow, there's a bunch of other guys on the field that are pretty talented as well. But you've definitely been able to tell a difference in, his media coverage since he's been up in this league.
Right. I guess that is definitely to be expected. So you guys actually have a pretty good team this year. I know your guys' expectations are to, everybody's expectations, I guess, in the CFL would be to win the Grey Cup. Do you see any similarities between this team and the team in 2016 that you were a part of that won the Grey Cup?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have a great team. Which obviously would be a similarity from a talent standpoint. The assistant general manager, Brock Sunderland, on that Grey Cup team in 2015 is our general manager here. So a lot, and our offensive coordinator, Jason Moss, is now our head coach here in Edmonton. So there's a lot of personnel similarities, which with that is just a lot of bringing the same culture here and how we practice, how we prepare, how we install our plays. The culture here is very similar, largely due to those two being at the top of this thing and instilling their vision on it. But on top of that, we have a really good team. I think we have as good of a chance as any, but it's a long season, an 18-game season, so a lot of this is about staying healthy and continuously getting better. This will be a big one this week, hopefully to go 6-3 and stay in the race to win the division, because that's what it's all about. Is getting into the playoffs with a high seed and then playing your best football. But I think we could definitely do it. We just got a long way to go. Like I said, it's a long season, so feeling good about it so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I'll definitely be tuned in tomorrow. You said ESPN2. What time will that game be aired?
It's 9 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN2 tomorrow.
Okay, so everybody, hopefully you're tuned into that. Danny, thank you for sitting in today. We appreciate your time, and good luck with your career and the remainder of this season. All right, we'd like to give a big thank you to Danny O'Brien for coming into the kennel and talking to us for a little bit. Guys, be sure to tune in to Edmonton Eskimo games and be rooting on our guy, Danny. So, guys, we'll go ahead and transition here and talk about our Heisman finalists. There's a lot of good players in the college football ranks right now, and a lot of guys who have finished, in the top 10 in the Heisman voting who are returning this year. We'll go ahead and we'll give our Heisman finalists. Diesel, we'll let you start. Who are your Heisman finalists for this college football season?
Does it go down to 3? Is it 3?
They mix it up a lot. I've seen all the way up to 5. I've seen 3. I've seen 4. It's just really bizarre on who they call all the way to New York.
I went ahead and went with 4. I think Will Grier, we talked about that. He might be the best quarterback in the country. Coming in, he probably is.
Yeah.
He can really throw the ball. I think it'll be a really high-powered offense, too. I think Shea Patterson with Michigan, I just think Michigan's going to be really good. I think he's going to be a big part of it. Obviously, their defense, too, but...
I actually like that pick a lot, Shea Patterson. It's kind of like maybe not a popular pick either, because some people would probably question who even Michigan's starting quarterback is this season.
And then I've got J.K. Dobbins on Ohio State. I think last year he averaged over 100 yards a game when he did play, so he got his way. I think he's really talented. I think Ohio State's going to win the Big Ten. I just talked about that. He'll be a big part of it, and I think Bryce Love's actually going to win the award.
You think Bryce Love?
Uh-huh.
Bryce Love did put an impressive season.
I think he just if he puts together 2 seasons that are just remarkable, I think he's going to get it.
Their hand would be forced, even if somebody did have a phenomenal season. Leighton, who do you have as your Heisman finalists?
My half finalists, I only have 4 too. The first one is Tua TT. He should put up, if that's just taking an indication, he could put up good numbers for the Alabama Crimson Tide, and they should be the best team in the country. So those two things going together pretty much make you pretty much a lock for a Heisman finalist. I have Jordan Haskins too. If you're a quarterback in Urban Meyer's offense, you're going to put up prolific numbers. Ohio State, how Wayne, their side of the Big Ten, but they were going to be a good team still. I have Trace McSorley, talked about him already. Last year he threw for 3,500 yards and 28 touchdowns. They lost to Colin Barkley, so those numbers should see a noticeable increase. And if he gets his team to College Football Playoff, I think he'll win it. But ultimately, I think the winner will be Bryce Love. Last year he had over 2,000 yards rushing, 19 touchdowns on a bum ankle for most of the games. Just a hell of a line. I can't remember who he was playing last year. Like, when you watched the game,
TCU, man, he kept coming out of the game.
Yeah.
His sock was all bloody. They'd have to tape his ankle every 3 plays, and he'd go out there and break off a 10-piece.
Yeah, I love this kid. I think he'll win the award because they just said back-to-back seasons. Even if McSorley does have a great season, I think the hand will kind of be forced there to pick Bryce Love.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that. So my Heisman finalists, I'm going to go with Khalil Tate. 1,500 passing yards last season, 1,400 rush yards, 26 total touchdowns in limited work. He only threw the ball more than 17 times in a game, 3 times last season. So you think about that with Kevin Sumlin's offense, he's going to be passing the ball more. He's going to be the guy there. And I think that he can do the extremely rare of going for 3,000 pass yards and 1,000 rush yards. Also on the list, I have Will Grier, 3,400 pass yards last season, 34 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. And that was his first season as West Virginia starting quarterback. I think all those numbers improve. He's going to flirt with 40 touchdowns this season, 4,000 yards. That's going to earn you a trip to be a Heisman finalist. Another guy I have, Jonathan Taylor, as a freshman last season, 299 attempts, 1,977 yards, and 13 touchdowns for Wisconsin. I don't know if the yards are going to bust over 2,000, but you know in that Wisconsin offense he's going to be a lock for 300 attempts, and he was 6th in Heisman voting last year, so I think that would make him a finalist for this season. Like these guys said, Bryce Love, 8.1 yards per carry last season on 263 attempts, 19 touchdowns. Seems like every time you turn on SportsCenter, every single week he's busting off a 50-yard run. Every single game last season, except one, he went for 100 yards, which is unbelievably impressive, and went for 150 in 6 of his 13 games last season. And 5th and final, I have Jake Browning. 2 years ago, he was number 6 in the Heisman voting, 3,400 yards, 43 touchdowns. Last season, his completion percentage did improve, but his yards went down, and so did his touchdowns. I don't think he's going to be, have a down year like that, especially in his senior year, which he came back to maybe win a Heisman and win a title for Washington. As far as my winner goes, though, I'm going to have to piggyback off these guys. I think Bryce Love's going to get the job done. I think we're going to make it unanimous. Just for the simple fact that he had such a good season last year and Baker Mayfield stole it from him. In my opinion, I think Bryce Love should have won the Heisman last year with 19 touchdowns, 2,100 yards. I honestly don't know how you improve on that, but if he does that again this year, it doesn't matter what anybody else does. 2 straight seasons like that, we've seen Heisman voters in the past kind of say, hey, we're going to give this guy his award because not only did it do it this year, but he did it last year as well. So I think he came back his senior year to win this award, and that's why he's going to do it. So guys, we're going to transition here to a very fun segment. It's called Diesel's Doghouse. Since we have Diesel here in the kennel, he's going to take any manager, team, coach, player, organization, and he is going to put them into his doghouse this week. Diesel, who do you have on the list for us?
So it hurts me to say it, but my Chicago Cubs are in the doghouse. They've made their way in there. So they pretty much teased us up to the All-Star break, played really well, got to first place. Felt really good at the break. As things go on, it's really just confusing to me. I'm not really sure what's going on. So for those of you that don't know, there are 15 teams in the NL. This is where the Cubs rank, honestly, in most of these things. So basically, you've got to hit the ball, you got to throw the ball, you got to catch the ball in baseball to win. On the hitting side, the Cubs are 12th in runs, 12th in home runs, 9th in average, 7th in OBP, and 13th in slugging. They're bottom half in every major hitting statistic. Honestly, don't know how. I mean, they had 4 runs last series. Then you go to pitching. They're 11th in team ERA. They have the 2nd most walks, the 4th worst batting average against. but somehow they're fourth in wins since the break. They're 2 games over 500. I don't know how the hell they're winning. I really don't.
That's eye-opening.
I mean, it's crazy. I guess if you look back 3 or 4 years, if I was pissed off after 2 division titles and were 19 games over 500, I'd be laughing at myself. But they're better than this, man. They got to play better. I guess the only people I can thank, because I know they're listening, thank you to the bullpen and the infield. They turned 7 double play. Really, their defense, they do a good job of catching the ball. The bullpen throws well. That's about all we got going for us.
So basically, since the All-Star break, the Cubs have been in the top half of the division, or not the division, but the NL, in one statistic that you named, and it was just above 8th place and 7th with on-base percentage, plus slugging.
But they're 4th in wins.
That
And
is crazy.
their lead in the division has grown.
That's unbelievable.
I mean, they should have blown this thing.
Baseball's a weird sport, man.
They really, it's odd. And it's what's even worse, what's even more confusing to me about it is Joe Madden is just historically good in August. Like, has been better than every manager in August past 5 years. And it's just not clicking. Not
No.
clicking this time.
No, that's very eye-opening stats. I knew things weren't that great, but we were still winning games, but it makes you wonder how.
Thank you, Cole Hamels.
Yes, big thank you for Cole Hamels.
But, yeah.
So this week, the Cubs are in Diesel's doghouse. So guys, we'll go ahead and transition back to college football here. College football playoff. 4 teams make it. Only 1 will be remaining. Guys, we'll go through. We'll give us the first round potential matchups, and then we will talk about the title game and who wins it. Diesel, who are your 4 teams that make it?
So I've got, this is how I have it right now, and again, I think Alabama and Clemson, one of them is going undefeated and one of them is not. One of them is going to lose 1 game probably. That's kind of what I'm seeing.
So the committee will automatically put them playing each other in the first round then.
So I've got Alabama at 1, Clemson at 2, Ohio State at 3, and then I think Pac-12 is getting left out, Big 12 is getting left out, and Michigan's going to be a 2-loss team, and they're going to be number 4.
Okay, and who do you have winning those potential matchups? You have Alabama versus Michigan and Clemson versus Ohio State.
I think Clemson and Michigan are going to make the national title game, and I think Clemson's going to win it all.
I actually really like that pick. That's kind of off the beaten path with Michigan, but I like it.
That's nice, though.
Leighton, who do you have?
Mine 1 through 4 goes Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Penn State 3. And the 4th one I went back and forth on a whole lot. I went back and forth to Miami and Stanford. But if I have Stanford win the Pac-12 North and being Washington going through that, they have to be in the playoff. Those games, I have Alabama and Clemson in the final, and Alabama winning back-to-back.
Okay, so you like Alabama winning back-to-back then. I have my 1 versus 4. I have 1 being Clemson and 4 being Bama. Bama losing the game to LSU and not being in the SEC title game is going to play a factor here, but yet the committee's still going to find a way to get 2 SEC schools here, as I have Wisconsin at the 2nd seed, or Washington as my 2 seed, and Georgia as my 3 seed. I actually have Clemson picking up the win against Alabama. Dabo and Saban are such a fun combo to watch play against each other, and I think that these guys are just going to go back and forth against each other. And I have Clemson edging this one out. Basically, they're bringing everybody back, and they kind of have that unsung hero in my eyes on the bench at quarterback, which if they make that transition, I think I'm going to like Clemson a lot more. And even if they don't, Kelly Bryant's going to get a second crack at this team, so I don't see Dabo losing in consecutive years to Saban. And then my 2-3 matchup, Washington and Georgia. These are pretty tough defenses. So Washington last year was the number 5 scoring defense, bringing back 9 of their 11 defensive starters, where Georgia, they were number 6 last year, but they lost their anchor of the defense in Roquan Smith, and they lost their 2-headed monster at running back. And I necessarily don't trust Fromm that much. I trust Browning a lot more than what I trust Fromm or even a rookie or a freshman stepping into the spotlight there. So my title game, Clemson and Washington. I've been back and forth on this a ton, but I think that, Clemson has that front 7 that's just absolutely phenomenal on the defensive side of the ball. Secondary, I don't think their secondary is necessarily as good as Washington. I think Washington's loaded on defense, but I'm going to go with the edge on Washington just because these 2 coaches are the guys who have completed like the best coaching strategy I've ever seen in my life. 2007 Fiesta Bowl, Chris Peterson beat Oklahoma, and then just a season ago we saw Dabo Swinney go up against Alabama and figure out a way to kind of crack that code on that defense. So it's going to be a great coaching matchup. I think I'm going to go with Washington to win it all. Just because I really like Browning. I think he's going to take that next step. He's not going to regress further than what he did last year. He came back for his senior season with Chris Peterson to get a job done. Chris Peterson's always been the odd man out. He's coached numerous top 4 teams, but he has never broke the hump and won a title. And I think this is going to be Chris Peterson's year because his team is phenomenal.
When I was looking through this stuff today, it seemed pretty clear there were 2 teams. I guess still, if you want to make the argument for Washington, with it being Browning senior year and all that, but there were 2 teams that is title or bust this season, and it's Clemson and Alabama. We know Alabama had pressure on it to win because for the last decade, that's all they've done in championships. Do you think Clemson had the same amount of pressure as Alabama does, or do you think Clemson is still new enough to the elite level to kind of flying under that radar?
I think Dabo puts that pressure on his players.
Yeah, I agree. Because the only team that we really see beat Clemson is who?
I mean, Alabama beat Clemson.
No, the only team that beats Clemson
Alabama.
is who? Alabama. So I think Clemson has that pressure on them that they need to beat Bama. And to beat Bama, how does that have to happen? College football playoff. And I see this team, if they beat Bama in the first round, I could see them treating it like their championship almost.
I was looking past Washington or who they play.
Yeah, I could see that happening. And, the committee, I don't know if they're going to be able to separate Clemson and Alabama, just seeing how they did it last year, Unless they're locked in, obvious number 1, number 2, then they're going to try to mesh those teams together. And I could see Clemson edging out Alabama and kind of looking at it like that was our title,
Mm-hmm.
Like, as long as Clemson beats Alabama this year, I think that it's a success in their eyes. But I don't necessarily think that it's like title or bust, even though they are that high-level program like Alabama.
I agree, because I feel like Clemson, they've been good football school for a long time now, but they've only been like the national elite level, like top 2 or 3 team for a few years. So
Right. Now if Clemson gets into this thing, the college football playoff, and Alabama's not in it, their pressure is they have to win it because they are the other team other than Alabama that should win it.
I'll be so pissed if I don't get to see Alabama and Clemson this year.
Yeah, that would be a huge
I don't care if it's finals or first round. I just want to see it happen.
And I think that this committee's going to do. They're going to set it up.
Oh yeah, because that's big. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a lot of money,
That's a lot of money.
and you can't risk it being Washington and Bama in the title game.
Definitely not. No.
A Clemson player's father is on the committee.
Oh, they are?
How strange is that?
That is bizarre. Do you know who it is by chance?
I didn't note the name, but
We should get him on for the interview.
when I was looking at things before this, I saw that.
Just imagine the NCAA being corrupt. That's weird.
I doubt it influences. It's been easy for him recently.
Yeah. Been an easy vote for him, but I feel like that's a conflict of interest.
You'd think.
They need to get Saban's wife on there. That'd be pretty fun. So, guys, we'll go ahead. We wrapped up our college football preview. We'll transition to a staple of the show, which is darts. Pew, 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 pew. We're playing darts, baby. So, guys, if you're not familiar with darts, what we do is each one of us will throw the dart at the dartboard, and it'll land on a number. And each number represents something different. Over the past couple weeks, Fletcher has given us a game that's pretty fun to play, especially whenever, there's not a ton of sports to talk about at this time. It's potential trades, and it's cross-sport trading. So the way that this works is, we'll say X NBA team in New York trades a player to X city in Miami in return for a baseball player. And we'll talk about whether or not these trades would be good for each team or bad for each team. And we can't have it 50-50. We're either all in on the trade or we're not. So this week, Leighton, take us away. And we have a 17.
Alright, 17 is Ben Simmons for Mike Trout. So Ben Simmons will go to the Lakers, Mike Trout will go to the Phillies. Ooh. If I'm Philadelphia,
I'm all in.
If I'm Philly, I'm hopping on it.
I'm probably going to do it because you're closer. I don't know though.
This is a tough one.
I would say I wouldn't do it for either team,
Why not?
either city. Because Ben Simmons, you put him out there with Lonzo Ball and LeBron James, and Ben Simmons had the ball in his hands. What is he?
Okay, then you can say the same thing about Rondo, who they signed.
Okay. All right. Well, what is Rondo? Okay. Well, Rondo and Ben Simmons aren't the same thing.
I think,
let's not talk about
I
Rondo
think they'd
here.
either become bricklayers or they become the Monstars. One of the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No in between.
No, there's no in between on that.
It'd either be clinking and clanking everything, or they would just be so freakishly athletic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't do it.
I think I would.
You think Mike Trout's going to leave? When's he up for?
After next season, I think.
Well, shit, you might as well get Ben Simmons for a couple more years and just let Trout go.
I think
That's
I
a good
like
point.
this a lot because if you put Mike Trout, the best baseball player in the world, hands down, in that Phillies lineup, I think that immediately makes the Phillies,
Better than the Braves, for sure.
yeah, that easily wins the division, and that makes that team probably your favorite for the NL. I mean, honestly, with as loaded as they are, especially getting like Wilson Ramos at the deadline, like they're solidified at the catcher position, they have good pitching. I really like that for both teams because the way I see it is that Philly's not going to win anything as long as the Celtics are rolling and as long as the Warriors are going. So you send Ben Simmons to LA, and what's LA doing with Mike Trout? They're just wasting away years not being in the playoffs. So LeBron is the biggest thing in LA, so they should do everything possible to make that man happy. And I think that you bring Ben Simmons in there, and LeBron gets to play with the ball, not in his hand a little bit more, and, extend his career. He's not, being overworked. Whenever he comes off the floor, somebody's able to handle it. I like this trade for both teams. Now, do I think they could compete with the Warriors? Probably not, but we've seen LeBron do great things with good players, so you never know with him.
So 1 second. You think the Nuggets, Kemba Walker, can compete against the Warriors? By the Lakers with Ben Simmons.
I said that they could compete. I didn't say they could win, but I said I also think that the Lakers would be able to compete.
Okay.
I think it would also present an interesting thing, too. Let's say you put Mike Trout in the Phillies right now. He'd be in the playoffs facing a bunch of guys he's never really faced pitching-wise.
Oh, that would be
So
awesome.
nobody would know how to pitch him, and he wouldn't really know any of their stuff. I feel like normally when you're in the playoffs, it's guys you face.
Oh,
You
yeah.
got 10,
no,
15 at-bats against them.
Yeah. Do you think you'd do this trade, Diesel?
Probably both ways.
I think both ways this works out. I think it makes both teams better, and I really don't think that the 76ers are really going to be doing much anyways, in the next couple of years. So I think it pays off for both teams. You could possibly get yourself a championship.
I'll stand in the minority and say no.
Why would you not do it?
Because if the Lakers, I guess it makes sense because they're going to lose Mike Trout in a couple of years. So I'm thinking it that way, you actually want to do this trade. But right now, if you're Philadelphia, you're not going to go get Mike Trout, try to win the World Series for, again, 2 years. No guarantee he resigns in Philadelphia. And Ben Simmons, like a fucking star last year, and you can lock him down for a max deal, super max deal. I don't know why you would trade away the guarantee for the extra guarantee. On the same note of him leaving LA.
It makes less sense for Philadelphia to take it. It does.
I don't know, because, a championship solves all problems, and I don't think that this 76ers core is going to win a championship, because they're getting better, and they don't have as many picks as what they had stored, so they're not going to be, bottom feeding and loading up on talent again. Like, this is what you have, like, you better be okay with it. And I don't think they're going to beat the Celtics anytime soon. They're definitely not going to beat the Warriors. I think it'd be a fun trade. This would be an awesome trade.
Yeah, if I'm LA, I'd probably do it, but if I'm Philadelphia, I definitely wouldn't. So,
Okay,
my
so-
thing's no.
2-1, we're sending Ben Simmons to the Lakers.
Yep.
And Mike Trout to the Phillies. My throw. And we have a 20.
20. Doing Garoppolo for Aaron Judge. So King Garoppolo goes to the Jets, and Aaron Judge goes to the Giants.
Ooh. I don't think I'd do this one. I don't think so. Because the Jets, they got their future locked down. It looks like they're in a position where they actually have like two really good quarterbacks that are both really young and super promising. One being a Pro Bowler, for the Vikings just a couple of years ago. And you send Aaron Judge over to the Giants. Yes, that does help them a lot, but then they're going to be that same 0-16 football team that the 49ers were on pace to be before Jimmy G showed up. So I'm going to go with a no.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go with a no, too. I think Jimmy G just fits that, California, that he just belongs there. I think he's going to thrive there. And then in New York, you don't always find somebody who can take the criticism, and Judge has proven he kind of can. So, or you can at least prove him wrong.
Yeah.
So I mean, I probably wouldn't screw with it too much. I'd leave
Those New
two.
Yorkers love Aaron Judge. You see the candlelight? I've talked about it a lot on here. That the candlelight vigil they had whenever Aaron Judge got hurt.
Hey, I did see that. Yeah.
That was the weirdest thing ever. I feel like that and the Baker Mayfield, like, let's walk his jersey out there, like, act like this guy, like, died last week whenever he got suspended, was, like, the two funniest things I've seen in sports in, like, the last 2 years.
Yeah, I wouldn't do this trade if I decided to follow the same as you guys said. But let's say if the football team is the Giants. Would you be more apt to trade Jimmy G to the Giants and just the Giants?
Ooh. I don't know.
I don't know, dude. If you put Jimmy G... If I'm New York, I still wouldn't do it. But if I was San Francisco, I'd probably... No, if I go down. San Francisco still wouldn't do it, but if I was New York, I'd probably do that.
You just want to see Aaron Judge out of your division any way possible.
Well, I didn't think about that, but yes, I mean, that would be nice to see him gone.
Leighton's wearing his Red Sox shirt, said he didn't even think about Aaron Judge being out of the division. So, unanimous? No?
No.
Okay. So we are not sending Jimmy G to the Jets and Giancarlo to San Francisco. Diesel, your throw.
Good one.
And we have a 9.
A 9. James Harden for Michael Thomas. James Harden go to the Pelicans. Michael Thomas go to the Texans.
Holy smokes.
Both those teams would be so cool if that
That would be really cool.
happened.
That would be phenomenal.
Hopkins and Thomas, and then obviously Harden with.
Oh, I like that. Did Fletcher come up with that one?
Fletcher came up with all these, but like.
I'm just gonna say yes on the cool factor, the wow
Yeah.
factor.
Wow. That wow
Wow.
factor is
That
huge.
happened.
I don't even have to look. I don't have to look anything up.
Leighton, I'll
think it
pass
through.
I'll pass the ball to you.
I'm gonna pass the ball to you because I got to think of this one for a second.
All right, so we have the Texans, who Texans fans think that they could win the Super Bowl this year. You get Michael Thomas to go on the opposite side of DeAndre Hopkins, and you throw Will Fuller. No, not Will Fuller.
Yes, Will Fuller,
Yeah.
the fourth or
It
fifth
is
or
Will Fuller.
whatever.
You throw him into the slot. That offense is ridiculous. That's probably that's a fun offense to watch, and especially a jump ball
You
guy.
can throw Hopkins into the slot and keep Will Fuller out wide.
Yeah, you can do anything with those guys. Like, all three of those guys are so versatile. All of them can go up and get the ball. All of them are fast. And, James Harden, if you get rid of him, oh, man. I feel like the championship window is so small for the Rockets right now just because of the fact that, CP3 is getting older. He's getting older every single day. And I doubt that this Rockets team is going to be able to beat the Warriors team this next year, which I feel like is their best chance to do so. Because if they don't get it this year, you're getting another year older with CP3. You bring a young guy like Michael Thomas there to kind of be a cornerstone of the offense alongside Nook and obviously Deshaun Watson. And then James Harden's on the Pelicans. I feel like New Orleans fans have to be jumping on that. Drew Brees is good enough to put a Band-Aid on any wide receiver going out of the system. They're still going to be really good, still going to be a contender. I like this trade for both teams because I think the Pelicans could compete with the Warriors at that point.
Yeah, I would do.
Better Clint Capella. I mean, and P. Anthony did, he'd have more of a game than Clint Capella.
Oh yeah, that would be
He's
fun to watch.
He might be better than Harden.
Oh yeah. If you take every aspect of basketball into consideration, probably.
You're missing a big point though. If Harden left, Melo would get like 25 shots, probably 20 shots a game, and that could be a winning formula.
Yeah, Melo's all about that.
It's worked every year of his career so far.
Yeah. Oh man, dude, the 2-man set with him and CP3
we
would
haven't
just
seen that. I'd like to get a look at that one.
But I'll do this trade. Everything as simple as this. We'll talk about this more next week, but I think the Texans are going to Super Bowl this season. Getting Michael Thomas just makes that better a better chance for City of Houston, and the Rockets aren't being the Warriors, so they'll be fine gearing up James Harden and with a conference final finish for Super Bowl. And the Pelicans, that'd be really cool to watch him and Anthony Davis.
That would be awesome.
So yes,
That would probably be like one of the most lethal 2-man combos that I can remember in my lifetime. That would be so fun to watch. So we are sending Michael Thomas to the Texans, and we're sending James Harden to the Pelicans.
yes.
Big round of applause to Fletch on that one. That was a good one. I like
good one.
that.
Yeah.
Good job,
I like
Fletcher.
that. So guys, this is our time to put the producer in the spotlight. Each week, he goes out and he grinds at the movie theater, with or without his movie pass, and he finds himself a movie that he's going to watch and review for you guys every single week. Leighton? 1-2-1-2, Pip's Entertainment Review. Sit on down for a movie to view. Take us away.
In case anybody's concerned about my movie pass status, I've determined that it's more financially feasible for me to use AMC Stubs at this point. So I'm now AMC Stubs A plus whatever thing called member.
So are you like the top level of like?
They don't have
guys-
tiers, and it pisses
What?
me off.
He's
Because
flying
this is-
AMC first class.
Yeah.
Okay, I will
Is
never
there
spend.
first class seating in the movie theater?
They don't
Wow.
have they don't have tiers for the club. It pisses me off. 'Cause I would never spend enough money at a casino to get that platinum club. I won't spend enough money anywhere to get that. But movie theaters, I probably spend about more money than probably anywhere in the country.
Yeah, I feel like you're the only reason the movie theater still exists.
And I want them to have a tier club so I can be the fucking platinum tier, whatever the top tier is, and
Yeah.
get all the cool benefits.
Yeah, I think you would. Like, you would walk in and they'd have your slushie, like, sitting in the VIP desk, like, waiting for you as you walk in.
Yeah, that would. Yeah, I mean that's the dream, really.
Yeah, I can see it. I think you would eat that up.
But I
Slurp
talked
it
about
Yeah.
He'd slurp it up.
He'd slurp it up.
slip it up real nice. But I talked about this last week. And for the next 3 or 4 weeks, I'm talking about the show Hard Knocks on HBO, Cleveland Browns this year. So last week I talked about him, and it's basically always me and the team, and getting to know Baker Mayfield and how good a person he is, and how anybody hates him. This week's Hard Knocks, a different vibe. Had the first game. The show had a cold open with Corey Coleman and Hugh Jackson arguing, and it ended with Corey Coleman saying, "If you're not going to play me, just trade me." Well, we know how that ended. So then they had the theme song, and then the show opens back up with Corey Coleman in his home, showing off his shoe collection, which is really, really cool. And he said he has some program to give free shoes to the kids of Cleveland. I don't know if that program will try with him to Buffalo or not. I feel like Buffalo, you want more snow boots than tennis shoes, but it's kind of find out. And then boom, next scene is him moving his shoes out of his house, like Kentucky Fast.
Wow.
Then we move on to David Njoku. Could not catch in practice. Could not catch the ball.
The guy's never been able to catch his whole life.
No, he was looking really awful in practice.
He has, like, one of the lowest catch percentages of tight ends last year. It was, like, 53%.
Yeah, the way it looked here, they hands of stone. He did have some pretty cool, like, paisley purple-ish gloves, though. So,
He thought maybe that'll help me catch better.
He got the style points. If he can't,
Looks are better than results.
if he can't catch, he looks good. Speaking of looks, dude, the guy's a fucking specimen.
Yes, he is. That's why I like him so much for fantasy football.
Like, I don't know. It's just him looking out, and he just looks unreal doing that.
They can start tight end jet sweeps for him.
I don't understand this. Like, why is he wearing gloves in practice? Like, if he can't catch, I'm going to make that guy not wear gloves. Like, make him figure things out before we give him gloves. It's kind of like how they're making people earn their stripe for
Yeah,
the Browns helmet.
God, that's so stupid.
Yeah, it's like earn your stripe. We've won one game in the last 2 years. Like,
I don't think I want to earn this stripe out,
The
honestly.
bar is not too high.
No, I feel like they should make David Njoku earn his gloves. Like, the first time he rattles off, like, 5 straight completions where he actually catches the ball, then he earns his
You
gloves.
get your gloves back. Alright, move on to Antonio Callaway. Everybody knows he got ticketed for possession of marijuana. He made the very bold decision of not telling anyone. No, he didn't tell the GM, no coaches, no teammates, just no one. In fact, Todd Haley and Hugh Jackson both acting at separate times during practice if everything was okay. He just, appearing off, like he was hiding something or something like that. So actually what was wrong, he said, nah, everything's cool. Everybody listening, if something goes wrong at work, just go tell your boss. He's going to find out. Don't let him find out through, somebody that you sell things to, or in this case, a reporter calling about the scoop on what's going on.
Especially if you're a pro football player. Like, they will expose you.
Yeah, anything. You make a mistake, just, beat him to the punch of it. But, in talking with Joey Dorsey and Hugh Jackson about what happened, he said he got the weed ticket because the cop told him it would be cheaper than a speeding ticket. You're the only career choice where you cannot make that decision.
That is terrible.
You gotta take the few more dollars fine and not get the official marijuana ticket because you will get suspended or punished for that one
How does that make any sense?
because the world's a fucked up place.
No, I mean, how does that make any sense for that guy to decide to do that? Like, hey, load me up with the speeding tickets. I can overcome this. Like, now he's going to have, like, the black flag on his name, like, the whole entire career.
Oh yeah, no, he should have just took a speeding ticket. And
That's crazy.
but his punishment was actually play the entire preseason game, which he performed pretty well in the game. And last part of the show, which was the game. Last half hour, we talked about that last week. Baker Mayfield looked awesome. Todd Taylor looked awesome. And Njoku learned how to caught 2 touchdown passes. And so, Hard Knock this week, Honestly, so far for the season, I haven't been that great. I haven't got to really know any like the lesser players yet. But who that's coming, this episode gets a good 2 dips.
So, okay, I actually have a theory on the Browns. So, the Browns this year wanted Hard Knocks to come there. They had to have. Like, the Browns are so bad, they're like, hey, maybe we can get Hard Knocks here. The only way you can get Hard Knocks there is one of the stipulations that you cannot have a new head coach. Mm-hmm. So they wanted Todd Haley to be their head coach. So they brought him in basically just to sit there and
argue with Hugh Jackson about the offense.
Wait until like week 1 is over and they lose like, their 32nd of 33 games. They fire Hugh Jackson immediately, and then now you have your new head coach, Todd Haley, waiting in the wings. And I think that's the only reason Hugh Jackson still has a job.
Another reason they could get Hard Knocks there is cameras getting players, and Des Bryant had a meeting last week.
Yeah, did they have Des Bryant on there at all?
It'll be on the win tomorrow night.
Oh, it will?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
And for that one, this week we get Des Bryant, next week we have Josh Gordon.
That'll be fun.
No kidding.
That'll be fun. So, how many dips for this season?
The season so far, we're going to give it 2. I don't know, I'm still waiting for them to... Do you remember a few years ago when we watched the one of the Texans? How they introduced to all those, like, younger, like, newer players?
Yeah.
They haven't done that at all this season.
That's kind of weird. Well, it's probably because they have this boatload of, like, guys that are brand new to the organization.
It could be it, too. Another thing that's happening, Baker Mayfield's really talking... They're showing him a whole lot, because... Them picking the draft, everyone see Baker Mayfield.
Right. So, guys, definitely be checking out Hard Knocks. That way you can follow up with Leighton Scoops and his little rundowns there. So, guys, any bold predictions for this week? MLB playoffs ramping up. It could be something on possibly even college football season. Guys, what are your bold predictions?
One significant player in fantasy drafts will sustain a devastating injury.
I hope you're not correct about that, and I hope you're not also drafting.
So written down in front of me, I have written another star NFL player will be lost for the season to injury before week 1.
Wow.
So
Okay.
Well,
yep.
so
I'm gonna
that's
stick
going to
with
happen.
it.
but-
Yep. Generally, my thought process is generally starters play the most in the 3rd preseason game, and somebody's gonna have one of those non-contact leg injuries.
I hope that you guys are not correct on that. Well, it could possibly be it probably would be non-contact since the NFL's like leaning that way for no contact at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be flagged soon.
What do you think about that?
According to Richard
New,
Sherman.
what do you think about
dumbest-
that?
The thing that really bothers me is the driving the quarterback to the ground.
Did you see that flag the other day?
Yeah,
That was pathetic.
it's like, what are we going to do? Just push him down and then they tackle him and immediately let go?
I can understand, like, don't DDT the quarterback or, like, lift him up over your head and slam him. But, like, the one that I most recently saw, I can't remember who it was, but all they did was just tackle the quarterback and he got a flag for that.
Yeah, they said that he thrusted his body weight onto him. I guess it's supposed to become a cloud once you get the quarterback off balance.
That's unbelievable.
Long story short, I feel like there probably does need to be more safety around like head injuries, but with the way they're doing it, there probably isn't a way to fix it. They're putting defensive players in such a bad spot. They can't not hit people how they're telling them to.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's pathetic the way that they're trying to monitor it. It's like, yes, get rid of the head-to-head blows. Like, that's an obvious thing. They've done that.
There are guys hitting with their shoulders getting flags. Like, what the hell? What are you supposed to do?
Yeah, I know I've seen at least like 5 or 6 times where guys have just open field tackle, wrapped up, but since they led with the head on the side of the body, like, even though the head does not make contact, they weren't trying to, they just did an open field wrap-up tackle, they're still getting flags. I've actually seen where a lot of teams are trying to preach for arm tackling, so that'll be great.
Have you guys ever sprinted without your head leading your body?
Never in my life.
Neither have I.
Just run backwards, NFL players. That might work the best.
I don't
for you.
know why that's the concern either, because offensive and defensive linemen are coming out of 3-point stances hitting each other head to head every single play.
Yeah, I don't get that at all.
Okay, Jared, that's football.
Yeah, that's just football. You can't take that out of football, Jared. I don't get it. I think that they're just throwing these flags now, and then they'll back off during the regular season.
Yeah, tough situation. It's just it's gonna screw someone in some game somewhere. Some fan base is gonna be pissed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Or you'll be happy for some 15-yarder that your team got helped out by. Mm-hmm. So my bold prediction is just going to fast forward to the NCAA football season, and I am going to predict right now Ed Orgeron will be on the shoulders of his defensive lineman being carried out to the middle of Death Valley after he defeats Nick Saban. And on that note, for Leighton, for Diesel, and Drake. Dippers, as always, stay saucy.